Hello, my name is Jill from ANU Online. This video is about adding a database activity to your course. A database can be used for a collaborative collection of web links, books, book reviews, journal references and similar, and for displaying student-created photographs, posters, websites or poems for peer comment and review. It may be adaptable for use as a student project or portfolio space and can be collaborative or individual. It also allows for peer feedback via the rating system and comments. As such, it can be graded if you wish. Database enables the teacher to add a set of fields for students to complete, such as text areas, web links, names, dates, images, and file attachments. To add a database, with editing turned on, go to Add an Activity or Resource, and under the list of activities, select Database and Add. You'll be taken to a page where there are fields to complete. First, give the database activity a name. Then, in the description field, provide a brief description. You can tick to display this description on the course page if you wish, or leave it unticked. My database is going to enable students to research the Moodle tools for communication and to share their findings and resources. Under Entries, you have options as follow. You can set it to Approval Required if you wish to check what the student will be adding before they add to the database, or you can leave it open for them to add without approval. You can allow comments on entries or not. I'm going to allow comments as I wish this to be a collaborative effort where students learn from each other and provide feedback. You can also require a certain number of entries to be completed by each student if this is an assessment activity. You can set it so that students must make a certain number of entries themselves before viewing others, also handy if it is an assessment. You can limit the number of entries also. I'm going to leave everything open as I do not want to place restrictions on the students' collaboration, and this is not an assessment in itself. It is possible to nominate a window of time during which the database will be available and have it shut down outside those dates and times. I'm not going to enable this feature as I want it to be available to all students at all stages of the course. Grade is not really set to a particular grade, instead is meant to allow you to put the activity into some form of grade category if you have created it on grades. However, you can leave it as uncategorized. You can leave the activity as unrated if you wish. I'm going to select a points rating for this activity as I want peer assessment included. I will select the average of ratings and this mark will feature in grades. I can take this into account in my assessment of the student if I wish, or it can simply be left to provide feedback for the student from their peers. The common module settings are applied to all activities. You can show the database immediately, or you can keep it hidden from students until you have finished working on it, or until you are ready for them to access it. You can allocate groups to the database also, so that students can collaborate in groups. For further information on groups and groupings, see the lesson on this topic. You can put restrictions and conditions on access, such as completing prior activities or date-based restrictions, or restrict the activities to selected students. I'm not going to place any restrictions on my database activity. You can set completion tracking so that there is no activity completion showing, or show activity as complete once certain conditions are met, such as students have completed a certain number of entries. The conditions that you can select are require view or require grade, which means that students will have had to either view or had that activity graded, or both, in order to show the activity as complete. However, I'm going to leave mine at the default, allowing students to manually mark the activity as complete themselves. You can now save your database activity and either return to the course or display the activity. I will return to course, where you can see the icon displayed on the list of course activities. I will select the database activity and it will take me to a page where I can set up a template. First, I choose the Fields tab. Then under Create a new field, from the drop-down menu I can choose my fields. The fields you choose will depend on how you will have planned this activity and what you are hoping to achieve. What you are doing here is providing fields for participants to enter that data. Because I'm asking the students to go on a web quest to find out everything they can about communication tools in Moodle, I'm going to set it up so that they can enter any authors for resources they may find, a name for the resource, a field for a brief overview or description, a date that the resource was last accessed, a file upload field, an image upload field, and a field for putting in a website. Now, a word about the text fields. As you can see, there is a text input and a text area field. They are two different types of text fields, and it's important to know the difference, which is not possible just through their names. Text input is for a small amount of text, such as the name or title of something, while text area gives you an editor with a range of tools in which to add and edit a substantial piece of text, with additional tools to embed video, images, audio, and file attachments. So my first field will be text input, as I want a simple text field in which the participants can add any authors they are citing or sharing. Once I have selected Add for this field, I'm taken back to the list, which now shows one entry. My next field will also be a text input, as I want this field for the students to provide a name for their resource. Now, as you can see, I have two entries in the list of fields. The third field will require me to use the bigger, more complex text area field, as I want students to add a summary or overview of their resource I'm going to change the default height so that it doesn't take up quite so much room on the page and cut it down to 25 rows. I only want them to provide a brief summary. And this makes 3 items in the list of fields. Next, I'll put in a date field so that students can correctly reference any web resources they find. My next field will be a drag and drop field for file uploads. Students may want to share whole articles that they are able to download in a PDF format, for example. To add a bit of interest and colour, I'm going to enable students to add in any images they find interesting or relevant, such as screenshots or people shots. With this one, it is advisable to add image size proportions, or you'll have large images taking over your database. I'm going to constrain image sizes for the single view, that is the view which shows a single item rather than a list of items, to 320 by 480 pixels. This might sound technical, but I simply Googled standard image sizes for the web, and this was one of the recommended dimensions. It seems to work. For the list view, we really only want thumbnails, so I constrained the images to a very small 60 by 120. Of course, if you think the students will want to upload lots of landscape style images, it would be better to make a landscape ratio rather than this portrait style ratio. It's a good idea to set the upload size to the maximum of 2 GB to avoid any potential problem for students in uploading their work. Then click and go back to the list of fields. Finally, students will be sharing websites with information on them, and also websites from where they have sourced important articles. So I'm going to add a URL field. You may have noticed that I've not ticked any of the boxes about private, required or auto-linking. That's because I do not wish to use any of these functions. However, for the URL field, I will tick Open Link in New Window, because opening a website takes the user outside the page they are on. If it is a pop-up window, they can easily see this happen and they know how to get back to their original page, as they can minimize the web page window or shut it down. So now I have added all the fields that I think will be useful for the student to add to a database of resources and information, and I click Save on the list page. Now we're going to look at the templates in database. The set of fields that I have just completed can now be saved as a template. This is necessary or it won't display as a set of fields to students. So we go to the tab List Template to not only save, but if you like, you can format the table of fields and make it look nicer. Make sure you go to the List Templates tool to do this. If you do it in the single template, it won't apply to all fields, but just one field. Once in the list templates, you will see a text field for a header. If you like, you can put a title for your database here and format it. I'm going to make mine a nice blue color. If you like, and you're not too worried about the technical side of formatting a table, you can make the list of fields look nice. Select the table and right-click on it, then choose Table Properties. Putting the number 10 in the cell padding and 3 in cell spacing will give you some space between cells and around the text in each cell. You can also put a number 1 in the border box to make sure the list table has clear lines between each item. Then select Advanced to give the border a color. I want to give the cells in which I have typed the names of the fields a color also. So I select those cells, right-click and select Table Cell Properties. Make sure you choose Cell rather than Table Properties, as you do not want to apply the color to the whole table, just the name cells. In the cell formatting window, choose Advanced, then select Background Color and choose a color you think would look good in the cells. I'm choosing a light blue. Now select Apply. I notice now that the border color is no longer present. Perhaps my background color has overwritten it, so I will just quickly select border color again and put the dark blue back there. Click Apply, and now in the template you can see that I have a nice blue background color in the title cells and a darker blue border between the cells. You could put some text or a picture in the footer if you wish, but I'll leave it blank. Now select Save Template, and when I go back to View List, you can see my list looks more defined and easier on the eye. You can see that entries have been added for each of the fields, including an uploaded Word file and an image. This is the single view of my one set of entries. If someone else adds some entries, this is what the list will look like. 2 people have now entered data into each of the fields. A single view will show you just one person's entry, and a list view will show you multiple student entries. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you experiment with database and see what kind of interesting tool you come up with to help your students collect information for their projects and their collaborative work.